Welcome to Nuanced Beauty. This podcast is intended to be a spot where my husband Bill and I will capture some complex thoughts and challenge us to hold to our opinions loosely so that we can see the beauty in others and the beauty in ourselves. I want to challenge us to dive deeper into those everyday topics and those sticky topics that we might shy away from, or we might bulldoze over others with our opinions. Because I think there's wisdom in this idea that if we all thought exactly the same, there would be no need for anyone else. So let's have a conversation and let's get nuanced. Hi guys, welcome to Nuanced Beauty.
Hey everybody. So we've had a couple of episodes that we talked about college. We talked about student loan debt, and then a couple of weeks ago we talked about affirmative action. And we thought we would use this platform to share this one weird trick that student loan companies don't want you to know.
Yes.
The
way to avoid student loan debt is to go to a military academy.
Student loan companies hate him.
Yes. So you want to attend a military academy?
We ran into a couple of different people recently that we had this conversation with. A daughter of a friend, and then a random person from church who
he's interested in engineering. Like he's doing an engineering track program in high school.
Sure. Anyway, this has come up in our life a couple of times of, hey, this is something we know about that we could chat about here on the podcast.
Yeah. So let's see. Well, let's go through our journeys a little bit.
So first off, what is a service academy?
Yes.
There are 5 service academies. The United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, that, as you might expect, serves the Navy and the Marine Corps.
And a lot of people that go to Kings Point applied to Annapolis and didn't get in.
Yes. Just like some people didn't get into the United States Military Academy,
which is West Point, Army.
Which is the Army. There's the United States Coast Guard Academy, which is the other lesser-known academy.
Which is in Connecticut?
It's in Connecticut.
And then we
somewhere in Connecticut.
Yeah,
something.
I don't remember.
Oh, shoot. I'm embarrassed.
Who knows?
Yeah.
And then we got the U.S. Air Force Academy, which is in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Kings Point.
Oh, yeah. Let's say there's another one we're missing. There's the United States Merchant Marine Academy. Now, of these 5 schools, we're spanning 3 different departments in the federal government.
Yes, so, that's what I was going to say next. Right. You have the Department of Defense. They fund Army, Navy, and Air Force. You have Department of Homeland Security funding the Coast Guard, and you have Department of Transportation funding the Merchant Marine Academy.
Now, prior to 9/11, the Department of Transportation funded both the Coast Guard and the Merchant Marine Academy because the Coast Guard was historically
you mean Department of Transportation?
Is that what I said? Is that what I said?
I think you said the opposite.
Whoops.
But
they were all part of the Department of Transportation.
DOT.
And then after 9/11, they stood up a Department of Homeland Security. The Coast Guard Academy got absorbed into it, and they did not let us forget about it.
Yeah, because they got more money than we did.
Yeah. And then they got this stupid orange and yellow ribbon to wear on their uniforms that they made fun of us that we didn't have a stupid orange and yellow ribbon on our uniforms.
Yeah, but so why does that matter who funds it? Well, I would say the big thing there is that DOD has big pockets. Mm-hmm. And so you have roughly 1,000 students per graduating class at the 3 DOD, Army, Navy, and Air Force. The Coast Guard is similar size to us or maybe a little larger.
Similar size to us.
Yeah. And so both the Merchant Marine Academy and Coast Guard Academy have 300-ish or less students per graduating class.
Yeah. And the whole idea with this, and this is why student loan companies hate this one weird trick, is that these schools are taxpayer funded. So as a student in these schools, you do not pay tuition. However, in repayment, you do some amount of service following graduation, and that amount changes depending on which school you go to, which is the other reason why the DoD schools are somewhat different.
Yeah, but I think the DoD, they are a 5-year as well. I think it's a
They are
5-year,
5-year,
5-year
and that's it.
active duty.
The 3 DoD schools and DOHS just have the 5 years of active duty. Ours is the weird one.
Yes, ours is the weird one. With the Merchant Marine Academy, we have the option to commission and do 5 years active duty, or we have the option to do 8 years in the reserve, the Navy Reserve, specifically the Strategic Sea Lift Officer Program, which has gone through many name iterations. They used to be the Merchant Marine Individual Ready Reserve Group,
MERG.
the MERG. And then I think they had another name before they became the SSOP.
I think it went to SSO and then SSOP.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. And it's going to change again by the time anyone listens to this applies, because it changes about every 10 minutes. And
Probably,
it's super,
but
I want to say super doesn't matter, but
going back to that point, you have 5 years active duty coming out of
any of the other schools.
And ours, because the transportation component is 8 years in the reserve, and you are working aboard merchant maritime ships. So you are working commercially in the industry, and you are doing 8 years. You do just like, if you do that route, you have a minimum of 2 weeks a year that you need to serve for the Navy. And then, of course, you need to maintain your files.
Yes. So let's slow this all down just a little bit. With the other schools, the Naval Academy, West Point, so Annapolis, West Point,
Air Force
Academy, and Coast Guard Academy, you graduate with your degree and you graduate with your commission. You go serve on your commission, you move on with your life. The Merchant Marine Academy, you graduate with 3 things. You graduate with your commission, your degree, and a professional license to sail as a merchant mariner. When we talk about the obligations following Kings Point, you need to have the 8 years in your commission, but you also need to use that license for 5 years, which is what I did. So there's additional things. Christina mentioned the difference in deep pockets. Kings Point also isn't as free as the other ones. We did have to pay for our books, uniforms, some amorphous.
And you don't receive a stipend or whatever.
Yeah, the other schools, they pay you.
Yeah, like you get, I don't even know.
It's not much, but it's
a
something.
month, or it's some very small amount. But yeah, you like get a stipend while attending the school.
Yeah. So it's less free than the others, but it's still way more free than any conventional college.
Right. And from there, I would say one of the things specifically that attracts people to the Merchant Marine Academy is that there are only 300-ish per graduating class. And because it's DOT funded, there are representatives, there are, commissioned officers from all of the branches of service. So people graduate and they go Coast Guard, they go Air Force, they go Marines and active Navy, and what am I forgetting? Army. They have people commissioning into all of the services.
Much less competitive.
Yeah, and it's also
which explains how we both got in.
Cross commissioning. If you were to go to like Navy, you're gonna probably do Navy or Army. If you go to West Point, you're probably gonna go active duty Army.
That's not probably. You have to. That's what you do.
Oh, they're not allowed to cross commission? Oh, I thought they had. Well, in short, I think that they typically just go the branch that they are in, whereas at Kings Point, what I considered kind of nice and a thing that attracted me to the school was the ability to delay making that decision. And the idea that I could decide in a couple years.
Look at you retroactively saying you were attracted to that school as if you got into a different one. Look at you putting a bright face on it.
Yeah. But you made me lose my train of thought there.
It gives you a lot more options coming out, and it's a lot less competitive to get in, which is how we got in.
The one other component, is that if you are interested in being a pilot, right?
Yeah.
We always talk about that, because there are only 300 kids in the class, and because a lot of folks actually don't want to go fly planes.
Mm-hmm.
You have really good odds
You have
because
much
a
more
billet
slots.
comes from the academy.
Mm-hmm.
So you're competing with very few people to fill those
Yeah.
billets.
So all that's to say, all these schools are great options. They're all great education, little or no money. You do some service afterwards. It's a great deal for someone who, like us, didn't have money to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
Or even if you do,
And you
it's
really want to
still
serve.
a great way of being of service to your country. Now,
Mm-hmm.
that said, when I was going through high school, no one from my school had ever heard of my high school had ever heard from about an academy, let alone applied to one. How did anyone from your school? Do you have any
So,
guidance on this?
oh, a little bit. So the principal of my high school, his son went to the Naval Academy
Mm.
and graduated 4 years earlier. We had a plaque in the like not cafeteria, but our commons area, that had anyone who went to a service academy, and there was probably a dozen people on
Wow.
that like plaque, and then of course my name's on that plaque.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I should go back there just
Yeah,
so I
we
can
got to go
see
back
it.
there.
But so yes, I had an idea. That said, like nobody in my class was like thinking about or interested in a similar thing.
So you had at least some. I'm trying to think back as to how I even knew about these things.
I don't know.
I do think I got letters.
Oh, you did.
I did because I remember
Interesting.
seeing one. I remember seeing one for the Merchant Marine Academy and thinking, "Oh, I don't want to do that."
I wonder if my dad, I would have to ask, but I have a feeling. So I got a Washington, D.C. trip
Mm-hmm.
in eighth grade. Um, it, I was told that somebody, like I got like a grant and I was selected for it. I'm not for sure if that's the case or if somebody actually paid for me to go to D.C. eighth grade trip because I would have not been able to do that trip.
Mm-hmm.
After that trip, I was like really interested in serving in the military. And I have a feeling that I brought up that I planned on serving. And I have a feeling that my dad said, "Oh, well, you should go to one of the academies," or
Mm-hmm.
somebody somewhere made that comment and planted that seed.
Yeah, and my dad was an enlisted Marine, and he had this grandiose idea that his son was going to be an officer.
Okay.
And that he always talked about that because the officers had the nice houses and the hotter wives. That was what my dad
That
always
was his
said.
main, yeah.
That was his main thing. So his son,
Priorities.
and he was going to be an
Yes.
officer.
So fast forward to like for me junior year, I went to and like junior year, the end of it, or like right before summertime, I went to this event, an all academies service night.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard people speak and they just kind of like chatted about each thing, and they weren't students.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, at that point in time, I was most interested in West Point, and Annapolis was my second pick. And I had not even considered the Merchant Marine Academy. But at that like info night, the people who spoke, one person specifically said, if you have even an inkling of interest in any of the other ones, you should apply because you can always like, if you get accepted into the one you want, like great. But if you don't, you might get a nomination for one of the others.
Right, because the application processes, and we'll get into those processes in a minute, are parallel for almost all the schools. The Coast Guard Academy is a little bit different. So you might as well, if you're interested in any, go for it, because they're all great programs, and who cares at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke at one of those events. You said there wasn't students at yours, but if you type our last name into YouTube, you'll find 22-year-old Bill Zagat
talking about
throwing
Kings
down,
Point.
talking about Kings Point. And I spoke last, and I had a huge chip on my shoulder, and I thought we were so much better than the other schools, and we are, but that wasn't the point. And I didn't, because I didn't get into Annapolis, and the speaker from Annapolis was such a dolt. Like I had to throw down.
You felt ignited.
I was
inspired.
so ignited, and you and I were fighting about something. I don't remember what it was. So I had a lot of just adrenaline coursing through my body. So I was speaking a mile a minute.
Lovely.
So yeah, if you're interested, type our last name into YouTube. You'll find it.
You'll find it. Yeah. But now we should probably hop into the application process.
Yeah, so I went and did a little research today to see if it changed, and it really hasn't. So the weird thing about service academies is that the application process is twofold. because you cannot apply to for the 5 schools without having been nominated by your local senator or congressperson.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to my 2 senators' websites today, whose names I already forgot because I'm that politically engaged. And my representatives, and all 3 of them had some version of a link called For Constituents, Constituent Services, for Floridians, something like that, on their front page. And then you click that, and one of the drop downs says Service Academy applications.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember there being some kind of form letter when I went through this. I don't really remember. And this was early days of internet. So
yeah, I mean,
website.
For mine, I feel like I may have even had to mail things in
I
at
definitely
that time. And it, like, both senators and my congressman, there was a process, and there was maybe essays. I'm pretty sure I had essays involved, but I don't remember which ones.
And I assume the Congress people can do whatever they want to make their selections. Our local congressperson required essays. The senators did not. They required headshots, though, and I thought that was strange.
Okay.
I definitely did not submit a headshot.
And then you may have interviews. Like I had interviews.
You will have interviews.
Okay.
Not necessarily with the congressperson or senator themselves.
They were
panel interviews. And it was funny because I showed up to Senator Herb Kohl's interview, and I didn't realize until I sat down that I was not wearing matching socks. And that's all I can think about that entire interview as I crossed like one leg over to the other. You know, the slack come up a little bit, and you could see there was just 2 different black socks, just visibly different black socks. And so I'd like put my hand over my ankle so you couldn't quite tell as I was entering the interviews.
Oh my gosh. I remember, like, in my interviews, one of the senators had their process in downtown Kansas City in some like high rise, building, skyscraper downtown. And in that one, I remember one of them asking me like what if I liked to read and what books I was reading. And I did not. Like I had a really awesome like American Lit class in 10th grade, and that was the last time I passionately read in high school.
So what'd you make up?
Because my dad really liked Isaac Asimov books. Yeah, I was like, I read some Isaac Asimov.
Bold move.
Oh crap.
Bold move.
So I don't know. I said something dumb, and I don't even know what else I said, but that was terrible. Like that, I remember that. And I remember in my congressional interview, one of the gentlemen specifically said, "I don't think you're physically cut out to go to West Point."
What a knob.
Yeah, I mean, he was an older like guy. He was I think he was a graduate from West Point, and so and I don't know. They said something like, "Well, I don't think you're gonna get in or whatever or something." And I said, "Well, I guess I'll see you all next year."
Like, yeah, and I want to come back to that, but I failed to mention that it's one application for all 4 schools. So you interview, yes, and you give a rank choice which ones you want to be nominated for.
You want, yeah,
and you'll get one of them or none of them or something.
Yeah.
So I got asked by Herb Kohl's office would I consider, because I really wanted Annapolis, and they said, well, you could commission into the Marine Corps or Navy through Merchant Marine Academy. Would you consider that? And I said, but I don't want to. And I had no reason for it because I just hadn't looked at that school. And the fact was it was less prestigious in my mind for whatever that matters. But I did not. That was 4th out of 4, and I keep saying 4 out of 5. The Coast Guard Academy does not require the nomination.
Okay,
which actually makes it much harder to get into because everyone
people are just applying. Yeah.
I'm still drawing a blank on the town that place is from. It's going to drive me nuts. It'll be in the show notes.
Groton.
No, it's not Groton. That's where the Navy base is.
Where the Navy base. Okay, fine.
And then Herb Kohl is actually who ended up giving me that nomination.
Okay, to Kings Point.
So my dad drove me down to those first 2 interviews with Herb Kohl and Russ Feingold's office, and then I drove myself to my representative Dave Obie's office, and I had to miss a wrestling tournament for it. So I showed up halfway through the wrestling tournament still in a suit, which is a strange thing to see a 17-year-old in, with my American flag tie. Because again, this was rural conservative Wisconsin in 2006, so it was
looking the part.
Oh yeah. and people didn't know what to look. And I ended up getting the nomination from Annapolis from that office.
From the congressman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then I'll share on my end. I did get a congressional nomination for West Point. No one nominated me for Annapolis. And I got actually both senators said that they would nominate me for Kings Point, but Senator Kit Bond was the one who technically, like, his nomination counted
for the amount
for whatever it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
But so that said, that draws into the school has only so many appointments. So a senator nomination, because there are 2 senators per state, but there are a number of Congress
Mm-hmm.
representatives for each state. A senator nomination does have a little more weight.
Does it? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Than a congressional. But then in addition to that, if you're in like the middle, like, okay, if you're in Colorado, you want to go to the Air Force Academy, you're going to have a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in other parts of the country that don't care about the Air Force
there are so many Coloradoans
Academy,
at Kings Point.
Yeah, Colorado has a lot of Kings Point, but Kings Point ends up with a lot of people from Texas and Colorado because there are random states in this like country that no one applies to the academies, and so they give those appointments to the other states.
Another reason why Kings Point's easier to get into. I didn't even want to go to the United States Merchant Marine Academy, and I went. Like, the spots go unfilled.
I was landlocked, so obviously, like me, and I think there was one other Missourian actually, but so yeah, that I
Who's the other Missourian?
There
was 4 or 5 Wisconsinites.
I don't remember, but I knew that there was one at least because I remember running into someone. But anyways, so that's where are we going with that? Like, you need the nomination.
You need the nomination prior to doing the application to go to the school.
I think they're
concurrent.
They're concurrent, or it doesn't matter. Like, you need to apply at the school. You need to do the senator Congress application. Like, you do them at the same time separately.
So the application to get into the schools, I think it was even more straightforward than the congressperson. It was similar. There's some essays and things. It's just applying to a college after that.
Yes.
The Naval Academy had another interview process. I interviewed with, they called them the blue and gold officer. I think it was an alumni.
Okay.
So I went to this guy's house in like Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I think completely flubbed the interview. I think that's why I didn't get in. There's a lot of reasons. I actually had terrible grades. But I also had like 15 extracurriculars and a job. So that's how I got into other things. So
yeah,
those things help. But yeah, there wasn't another interview for Naval Academy.
Okay.
And I ran into that guy that day. I did the that speech at the All Academy.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh yeah. He's like, glad to see you're doing well. I'm like, yeah.
I'm doing good.
You're doing okay.
Lovely.
And maybe I was reading into it, but I could just see the regret in his face. Because the thing is, that other guy, the knob from Naval Academy who was there, he had to be asked they asked him to sit down halfway through his speech because he was so just like meandering. And this guy who chose between me and him, presumably, is like, I chose wrong.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I think the other component that we didn't share here is like, maybe, and we can't go into too much detail, but what is it like to go to a military academy or such? And you will graduate. All of the schools are 4-year colleges that you will graduate with a bachelor's degree in some form, depending on. At Kings Point, we only have bachelors of science, and
that's a really good point. The other schools have a more liberal arts education. Like they have other engineering and mathematics. They do have STEM programs, but they also have a wider
net of
for sure
of bachelor's degrees that you can graduate.
Kings Point
with.
has 2 majors.
Yeah.
Deck and engine.
There's some slight variations.
There was actually 6 majors while we were there. There was 3 different engineering and 3 different deck. And they do change it up a little bit every now and again. They were talking getting rid of the shipyard management major, I think.
I think it's still there.
I think it's still there?
Yeah. But so you're going to graduate with a bachelor's degree after a 4-year college, but your college years are going to be regimented. You will be
Oh, yeah.
wearing a uniform. You will have musters. You will have inspections. You will not get to leave campus when you want.
Yeah, your Friday nights are spent cleaning your barracks room for your Saturday morning inspection.
Yes, and you
There's a reason
don't
why we married
work.
each other. We couldn't meet anybody else.
Right. And for the most part, you don't work while you're at the
Mm-hmm.
academies. I mean, I think some of the DoD academies, I don't think you're allowed to even. At Kings Point, like people would take small
There
side
was
jobs.
a couple of country clubs in the area that would hire like bus boys out of the academy, and I
And you
did
would
that
just work a day.
actually a
Yeah.
lot. You would work an event as a one-off.
Right. But so you're full time going to be in a school and you are not going to have the quote unquote regular college experience.
At the time that we went, it was early days of Facebook. Even Skype didn't exist, FaceTime didn't exist. We were allowed
Yeah.
to make one phone call a week. Cell phones did exist,
But we weren't allowed to keep them with us. Yeah.
we weren't allowed to keep them with us. Our phones were given to us on Sunday. We got to stand outside, standing at the position of attention with the phone on Sundays for like 5 minutes. That's all we got.
Or 20.
Yeah, I don't remember. And it was like it was less
It was
during
a small
the
amount of
beginning.
time. Yeah.
But yeah, you got that one phone call a week, and it's I think a lot looser now.
Yeah, I think so. But just to kind of give an idea, like you'll have meals together, you'll be
Mm-hmm.
on campus full time. And it is regimented. Like you're not walking into a normal college experience, but quite frankly, that's not a bad thing.
It's a great thing because so many people leave high school, go into college, and aren't being told what to do anymore,
Uh-huh.
and then don't do anything and fail out.
Yeah, they fail out or they aimlessly take classes
Mm-hmm.
without any means toward graduating. And these colleges will set you up to you will graduate in 4 years. Maybe you will get set back
Mm-hmm.
and have to do a fifth year and come back.
But it won't be because of your class selection.
No,
which
like
is a thing in
you
regular
will
college.
have kind of a pretty laid out path for you. And if you agree,
Our majors were chosen by the end of the first trimester of freshman year.
Yeah.
They had to be.
Because you don't have time to take loads of classes.
No.
And there's no
Because you were
there's no
taking
room in
loads
that.
of classes.
But it's a great path for many folks. And we're definitely appreciative. Like we could take that back to Bill hoped to go to Annapolis. I hoped to go to West Point, and we both ended up at Kings Point.
And we're so grateful.
And we're grateful. Like it was a great college for us to attend, and we felt like we had many opportunities beyond what the other service academies would have offered when we graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel like we have a super tight-knit alumni network of people that we can be in any state and we could find someone who's there and we could catch up where we left off and drop in on someone's house. And it's a tight network.
And that's true. I think it's not untrue of the other schools.
Yeah.
And that's something that our eldest is 6. I'm not giving him these speeches yet. But part of military service in any branch, in any capacity, is you are part of that fraternity for life.
Yeah.
And that you have those connections and you have that relationship with this group of people for the rest of your life. And there's such value.
And there's some great bonds there.
That's how you get jobs.
And you get jobs.
It's how you get jobs.
For sure.
But yes, you will always be able to relate to this group of people. You run into some random person in a bar with a veteran hat on, and you'll be able to strike up that conversation. People don't hang out in bars with veteran hats, I don't think.
Yeah, or like in our case, you wear a Crowley shirt and you walk down the neighborhood street, and somebody sees that you're wearing a Maritime Company shirt, and they say, "Hey, you work at Crowley?
Hey, you're a Mariner?" I said, "Well,
yeah, I was." Like, and then you find out you both went to KV, and there you go. We have a bond.
That bond until they moved.
Yeah, and they're still close enough, so we see them.
We gotta see them more.
But yeah, you got anything else, Bill?
No, except to say that if you are listening to this and you have kids who might be interested in the academy, we'd be more than happy to have a chat with them. Drop us a message on our Instagram account.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been pushing Christina to get more involved in our alumni network because we keep complaining about this particular branch of the alumni network.
It doesn't seem very active. Yeah.
Well, I don't know who's listening, so I don't want to be that critical. But I do think that we have the ability and desire to maybe do this to be a service. So
sure.
if you do have children of approaching this age, we'd be more than happy uh, to help in whatever
Yeah,
way.
and share this episode because maybe they'll enjoy the conversation and get a little bit of practical advice on what it might be like and how to do it. Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and in the spirit of nuance, I hope you found something that you could agree with and disagree with and still choose to lean in. If you're liking the show, please follow us and share it with friends and leave a rating and review. Until next time.